Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio. You think you can get real news about Israel from major news sources located far away from Israel? Think again. Get it from the source. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
What do I hear? Is it the footsteps of the Messiah? Well, I don't pretend to know, but we will be speaking with a rabbi who is a regular lecturer on the subject. Today, astoundingly, we see the Arab nations making peace with Israel. And so much entrancedness. Not even say that right. I'm forgetting my English. We are now seeing, falling like dominoes, Arab entities wanting to normalize relations with Israel. The United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, now the Sudan, and soon perhaps they're saying even Saudi Arabia. And that doesn't already include Egypt and Jordan, which already have treaties with us. The sons of Abraham, they're calling it the Abraham Accords, and the son of Abraham with Hagar, his handmaid, or Sarah's handmaid, I should say, was Ishmael. And it says in the end of days that Ishmael will be making peace with Yaakov, and Esau will be making peace with Yaakov. Esau is Esau in English. So are we approaching the Messianic times? And then we have the U.S. elections, which may fundamentally change America. What might happen there, and how does it play in the times of the Messiah? We're going to be talking about all these things on the show today, and I want to just give a big shout out to all of our listeners who have continued to support Israel News Talk Radio. I know you love the station. People write me and tell me that they go to sleep with our station on at night. Every night they go to sleep with us. So other people they say they're addicted to us. All day long they listen. We want to thank you for your support. You can donate on our donate page as well. Thank you for being with us. We'll be right back.
Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
The return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel was prophesied in the Bible thousands of years ago and is coming true today. Shalom. Join me, Josh Wander, on Israel Unplugged. Listen in as we delve into the spiritual and physical aspects of the Jewish return to Zion. We'll discuss the biblically mandated, historic, and of course practical understandings of this incredible transition from exile to redemption. That's Israel Unplugged, every Monday on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
All right, we're back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Are we hearing the footsteps of the Moshiach, of the Messiah? Well, our guest is going to be talking about some of the current events that we're seeing happening today and experiencing, and he knows how to connect that with the Messianic era that we seem to be in. And I'm talking about Rabbi Mendel Kessen. He's an internationally known lecturer and educator that has spoken extensively throughout the world on Jewish thought, the Messianic process, and a wide expanse on other Jewish topics. He holds a PhD in psychology and runs a private practice in Brooklyn and Lakewood. He divides his time between Jerusalem and the tri-state area, and you can visit his website at www.torahthinking.com, and you can check out his channel on YouTube. Welcome to the show, Rabbi Mendel Kessen.
Yeah, thank you for having me back.
I'm always thrilled when you join us on the air because so much is happening and each event seems so heavy and so important. We've got the coronavirus pandemic that's affecting the entire world, closing down economies. We've got the U.S. elections. We've got even Israel's teetering on perhaps throwing out Netanyahu, going to new elections as well. So much is happening. Where would you like to start?
Well, it would be interesting to start with time. There's a Zohar that says the following, and this really will give us some type of perspective. The Zohar says that the resurrection of the dead, called Tchiyat HaMeitim, will start 210 years before the end of time. The end of time is the English year 2240, because that is the year 6000. So the Zohar says, according to one opinion, that the resurrection of the dead will start 210 years before. Now, what's important to know is that the resurrection of the dead starts right after the Messiah, Moshiach ben David, the Davidic Messiah, appears. So 210 years before 2240 is the year 2030, which is approximately a little more than 9 years, which is astounding. That's what the Zohar says. And the reason why, that explains actually why there seems to be such an incredible acceleration of events that happen. I mean, when you look at this year is not even over. And we've already seen major events that could unfold in, a century. We've seen, in January, the impeachment of President Trump, the rise of the hate Trump campaign, the COVID virus, right? We've seen also the riots, the Black Lives Matter, the Antifa riots in New York. We've seen that, you see. We've also seen Israel, the failure fundamentally of the government to really form a government 3 times. Now, it's true they have formed now, but everybody knows this government is not going to last because basically Benjamin Gantz and Benjamin Netanyahu, they basically despise each other. It's very obvious. So the government is only there because they need it for the crisis of COVID. But this government will not last. We know that, you see. So we see that's what's going on. And now, as we get closer to the elections, we see that there's now an erupting major scandal with Joe Biden because of his son, and that Joe Biden has been taking bribes from China, from many countries, and so on. So therefore, we've seen so many different incredible things. We've seen the collapse, not total, but the collapse in many ways of the Israel economy. We've seen the tremendous devastation of the American economy. You see, there are so many different things going on. And the way to understand that is because, according to the Zohar, we are really in the last decade of the Messianic approach. So that's a very important framework to keep in mind. You see, and each one of these things is that. Now, I'd mentioned that one of the key ideas of all this is that since we are approaching a Messianic era, is that the Satan, the Satan, is dying, even though it doesn't seem that way, because he already has done what he has to do. But the main idea is that the Jewish people, either through their commandments, the mitzvahs that they've done, or through the repentance, or through the suffering, the exile of 2,000 years, has basically almost brought the world to its intended tikkun, rectification. And therefore the Satan knows that when the tikkun, the rectification, is completed, he is terminated. And he knows that. So what he's trying to do, of course, is stop at all costs the ability of the Moshiach to come. See. Now, one of the things which I've mentioned previously is the concept that in the end of time, Esau, the brother of Jacob, repents, does tshuva, you see. And this is stated very interestingly in different, certainly in different places, and it's certainly alluded to in many different, what's called midrashim. And I have mentioned also many times that Donald Trump is the, not saying he's the reincarnation of Esau, but I feel certainly that he's a reincarnation of Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, who was of enormous benefit and service to Rabbi, one of the greatest of the Tanoim, and certainly the one who edited the entire Mishnayos, which is what kept the Jewish people intact as the oral law for 2,000 years. And Marcus Aurelius Antoninus was one of the key instruments of that. And so therefore he is called the Toiv Sheba Esav, the good part of Esav. And lo and behold, there has arisen a president of the United States who is the greatest president in history in terms of the Israeli people. What he has done, he has surpassed everybody's expectations, because I remember when he first came out, they all accused him of being an anti-Semite, which is absolutely absurd. It just shows you how most people have no concept of how to judge a person and how to judge events. But what he has done is incredible. And we know what he's done. Brought the embassy to Jerusalem, declared Jerusalem the capital of Israel, which automatically means that Israel is a legal state, that there is no international violation. Even the State Department came out and said that because of the territories, you see. And he's gone against the Palestinians. He's legitimatized or legalized the Golan, and he's really brought tremendous havoc with the UN, with the UNRWA, and with the even WHO, and also, of course, with the PLO. It's astounding what he's done. And lately what he's done is also astounding. He's actually bringing, in many ways, the incredible enmity of the Arabs toward Israel. He's bringing that to an end, you see, with the agreement between the UAE, United Arab Emirates, and also Bahrain, and now Sudan. And there are other nations lining up. And they're only doing it basically, there are several reasons, but one of the reasons is because they want to, curry favor with Trump, because they need America for whatever reason. And therefore, what he's doing is really remarkable, because remember, Trump has no foreign experience. In fact, that's one of the things that they derided him on. Yet he is now certainly worthy of the Nobel Peace Prize many times over. And besides, he's also made peace with Kosovo and I think Bosnia and so on. I mean, what he's done for peace is far beyond what probably almost any other peace recipient has done, you see. And the reason for that happens to be, which is very interesting, is because what's called the Klipa, the enemy of the Jewish people, which is called Yishmael, or the Arabs, is ending, you see. And at the end of time, we know that Yishmael, in the time of Abraham, that he allowed Isaac, Yitzchak, to go first in burying Avram, that the Chazal tell us that he did tshuva. And that tells us that at the end of time, same thing. The Arabs will do tshuva. Now remember, there are different levels of tshuva, but they will do tshuva in the sense that they will now ally themselves with Israel. Now, of course, part of the reason is because of Iran, no question about that.
Right.
But this at least gets them on the side of Israel, and more importantly, it gets them to acknowledge Israel as a legitimate country, and they want to do trade with Israel, and so on. So we're watching, in many ways, the end of the Klipa, or the end of the persecutor called the Arabs. That's a very important idea, But we see also, like I said, the whole concept of America, Trump, who is the Toiv Sheba Esav, is the good part of Esav, and that's really who he is. He is obviously doing incredible things with Israel. Now, I want to point out also, which I've mentioned before, that in many ways he has 4 jobs, and he's doing them with incredible alacrity, speed. It's really, you have to marvel at this guy.
Rabbi, hold it right there. We have to go to a break, but we're going to be back, and I want to ask you about Turkey and Iran and what roles they play. We'll be right back.
Hi everyone, this is Andrea Simento from Jerusalem, inviting you to drop everything and join me on my show, Pull Up a Chair. We'll visit this week's quirky stories, meet fabulous guests, and discover my Israel. Together we'll laugh, shout, and explain the topics that make us say, hey, we've got to talk about that. So get comfortable and pull up a chair with me, Andrea Simento, every Thursday on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, we are back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and we're talking about the footsteps of the Messiah. Is that what we're hearing when we hear the news today? We have so much happening. We've got a worldwide pandemic. We have U.S. elections. We have people on the streets here in Israel protesting every night, trying to get the prime minister out of office. Not tons and tons of people, but they're making a lot of noise, those who are. We've also got Arab nations, after bloody wars, after so much intransigence. I didn't get that right in the first intro of the show. And so much history of them hating us, not even willing to speak with us, let alone make peace. And now it seems like they're falling in dominoes, coming to make normalization and peace with Israel. We already have Egypt. We have Jordan already. And now we've got the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan. And now they're even saying perhaps Saudi Arabia and other countries as well. This is something incredible, even unbelievable, and it's happening so fast, supernaturally fast. So on that note, Rabbi, how would you like to tell us how the Arab nations are making an impression on the Messianic era? You did speak about it before, but there's also Turkey now, which are not Arab, but they used to have the Ottoman Empire, and they used to occupy the land of Israel, and Erdogan wants it back. He is even trying to take over the Palestinian Authority because Mahmoud Abbas is very old. He's been their leader for so long without elections even, and he wants to step in there. It's a step closer to Jerusalem. It's almost right on top of Jerusalem, in fact. Where does all of this play in together?
Well, the idea for this is the following. Even though Yishmael, which I mentioned, at the beginning of the hour, even though Yishmael does tshuva, repents, for whatever reason, and we know the reasons, it's not just as to ally themselves against Iran, but they also need Israel because they're all dying. They're all failed states, which we know, and oil is in many ways ending. Everybody's switching to electric cars and so on. And therefore, they have to change their economy or they're finished. And the best, easiest way to do that is to ally themselves with a superpower, which is called Israel. So they're doing it not just because of Iran, but they're doing it because they need Israel. But you have to remember something also, that just like there is the good part of Yishmael, there is the evil part of Yishmael. An evil country doesn't give up so easily. So even though the force or the spiritual force called Yishmael, it's not going to give up so easily. So Erdogan or Erdogan, whatever the guy calls himself, right? You have him, you have Iran. By the way, neither of which are Arab. I mean, Erdogan is basically from the Ottomans, Turkey, and of course Iran is basically Persia. They happen to be Muslims, but they're not Arab. But it doesn't make a difference because they represent Yishmael. Because that's who they believe in and so on. But the main idea is that these represent the bad part of Yishmael, and they are trying to retain their status. This is why you see them constantly threatening Israel. And that's really what it is. It's a civil war with Yishmael itself, each one trying to dominate the other. And that will not end until a messianic era, you see. Now, just like you see that in the Arab countries, it's the same concept of Esav, which of course is, I mentioned in a previous lecture, that there are three parts of Esav. There's Russia, there's Europe, and there's America. And America is the good part of Esav. But there's also the evil part of Esav, which is trying to retain its status. Who are they? They are the liberals, the radical left, the Democratic Party, the entire Washington establishment. You know, they want to destroy Trump. And that what they represent is the evil part of Esav, you see. And that really, again, you're looking at a civil war. Not militarily, but certainly politically, and even worse than that, because the Antifa is really the worst part of Esav, because Russia under communism is the worst part of Esav. And Antifa, you know, really represents that communism which we know. So that's what you're watching. On the side of Yishmael, like I said, there's the evil part of Yishmael that does not want to give up its reign. And the same thing with the evil part of Esav. They do not want to give part of their reign. And that is why they hate Donald Trump. Because the hatred of Donald Trump is psychotic. Especially when you look at the fact that he's done so much for America. I mean, America had the greatest economy before the pandemic. So why do they hate the guy so much? And the answer is, of course, because it's an existential hatred. Because Donald Trump wants to overthrow the establishment. And the establishment is the evil part of Esav. But that's what we're watching. And in the end, the Satan doesn't want the evil part of Esav to die, because those are his guys. And therefore he is doing as whatever he can, which is tremendously powerful. He is trying to tempt and convince all the people to destroy Donald Trump, which really means to destroy the good part of Esav, which means to really destroy the beginning of the messianic process. And that's really what we're watching. You know, in a certain sense, I would even compare it, which is interesting, to the war of Gog against Israel, against the Jewish people. Because Gog is really the indicator of the last war of evil against good. It's really what it is. And Gog is an individual who recognizes that spirituality is not now coming to the earth, and he wants to destroy the Jews. It's sort of like the last hurrah, if you want to use that word. Pun intended, by the way, hurrah. But in any case, but the interesting thing about that is that war, which is the last war of good and evil, is not just against Gog, against the Moshiach ben Yosef, because that's really who it's against, the Joseph Messiah, and therefore it's against Israel and Jerusalem. But anybody who's involved in the messianic process also has that enemy, that opponent called Gog. So it's interesting to watch that the same hatred that will be directed at the Messiah of Joseph is also being directed at Donald Trump. That's really what it is. It's a replica of Gog and Magog against the Jewish people and Messiah. And what I'm doing is I'm putting it in the context or the framework of the messianic process. And that's why what you're looking at is historical. It has never happened that people should hate a president with such a gut hatred, when on the contrary, you know, you may not like him because of his character or whatever, but look at the man's competence. He's one of the greatest presidents in U.S. history in terms of what he's done. And you can read off a list of what his accomplishments, which is mind-boggling. And the incredible thing is not only that he's done it, but he's done it not as a politician, but as a businessman. And he's done it being impeached. And he's done it with incredible opposition. And I just want to point out something, that what the establishment has done is that they're not only trying to destroy Trump, in effect they're destroying America. Because what they're doing is serving as a barrier to him doing very great things for America, to really bolster the economy even greater. So it's not just America, it's not just Trump that's being destroyed. It's America that is being destroyed. And that is why they have to be eradicated. That's really what's going on, you see.
So you were talking before about the war of Gog and Magog, and what we understand, or many people understand, is that these are going to be a world conglomeration of forces coming from the north into Israel to fight. And that, a lot of people say, they talk about the places of Meshech and Tuval, and that they say could be in Turkey, and Turkey is north of Israel, and Erdogan is rattling his sword. Is there any connection there?
I don't see Turkey as Goy. Turkey is Yishmael. Erdogan is Yishmael. Maybe he's who knows, maybe he's an incarnation of the evil part of Yishmael. But the main idea is I don't see them in any way really threatening Israel. Israel could take over Iran. They could certainly take over Turkey. You know, I think what he's really trying to do is gain favor with all the anti-Israel forces so he could take over politically in the Middle East. All it is saber rattling. We all know that. He can't take over Israel. It's absurd. But what he can do is impress the Arabs as a real leader who they can rely on. For those people who hate the Jewish people, who hate Israel, they can rely on him to be a leader. It's basically what it is. It's a campaign. You know, that's what it is. I don't see him in any way, shape, or form as Goy.
So basically you're saying that he's just making a lot of noise, but he's going to be insignificant in the end of times?
He wants to show the Arabs that he can be their leader. That's really what it's a bribe. It's he's trying to. It's a campaign. That's all.
Okay, but you're saying essentially he's just going to be making a lot of noise, but he's not going to have any real input or impression on the Messianic times.
Exactly. Because he can be destroyed. You know, Goy is something who's a real threat. This guy can be destroyed. In fact, if Trump ever decides, Trump almost destroyed Turkey. He put some certain sanctions on the guy, and his economy was on the verge of collapse. So I believe Trump is the knight in shining armor of Israel. Look what he's done. He's taken on everybody. You know, he's collapsing Iran. He's dictating terms for peace with Israel. He's getting all the Arabs to line up with Israel. He's taken on the UN. He's thrown out WHO. He's thrown out, UNRWA. Look what the guy's done. It's incredible.
Okay, hold it right there, Rabbi. We're going to be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Are you interested in transforming your life, drawing closer to the Creator, and uncovering the deeper meanings and hidden treasures in the Hebrew Bible?
Then join me, Rav Yitzhak Michelson,
and me, William Hall,
on the Science of Kabbalah, where we are seeking to narrow the gap between what we understand of our physical and spiritual worlds. So make sure to tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Israel time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on Israel News Talk Radio.
Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Did you know this psalm and many others were composed by a Jewish shepherd and musician who later became a king? Would you like to know some of the inner meanings of Psalms to help you connect with God and strengthen your soul? An exciting and easy-to-read book is now available which will help you do just that. Software for the Soul, Psalms for Everyone, available on Kindle, Audible, and Amazon.com. Software for the Soul.
All right, we're back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and we're talking about the footsteps of the Messiah. So much happening in the news today. Is this what we are hearing if we look past the headlines? Our guest is Rabbi Mendel Kessen from www.torahthinking.com. He regularly posts his lectures up on his YouTube channel. You're going to want to check it out. And Rabbi, during the break, you were talking to me about the Pope and what you believe his role is in the Messianic times.
Yeah, but I just want to mention one thing which is important. Because Yishmael is falling with the Arabs, there's no question that Saudi Arabia is going to join. And Saudi Arabia is the essence of Islam. And the only thing stopping Saudi Arabia now is basically is Salman himself. But Mohammed bin Salman, who's his son, the crown prince, definitely wants to join with Israel because he realizes that's the only way that Saudi Arabia basically can survive. So once they come on, that in many ways is the end of the PLO, and that's what's going to happen. But in any case, the concept, there's something that happened which is very important, although it's not recognized, and that is that the Pope came out with a pronouncement which was astounding, where he said that homosexuality is okay in civil unions. Now, what that's supposed to mean is that, well, marriage is not, they don't want to endorse marriage, but homosexuality meaning that it's not a sin. It's okay as a civil union as long as you don't get married to the guy, whatever, you know. But that's an astounding comment. Why? Because it has tremendous repercussions in terms of Esav. One of the major features of Esav is incredible arrogance, gaiva. The second thing is taiva, tremendous pleasure seeking. But the third thing really is a hallmark of Esav, and that's mirma, fraud, deceit, you see. And that's how we know Esav. And I had mentioned a long time ago that Esav today was Esav, then it became Rome, then Rome became Western civilization, Western civilization became Christianity, and Western civilization is basically Christian. So Christianity today is Esav, but the problem is that Christianity represents the evil part of Esav, not the good part of Esav. And we know a major feature of Esav is his fraudulent behavior, that he's like I said, he's a fraud. He's deceptive. He fools. He's an imposter. And one of the ways which is interesting is that he has fooled everybody is the concept of the Christian religion, because he wants to come across as righteous. And that's how he fools everybody. Even though more people were killed in the name of Christianity than all wars combined, you see. And he's responsible not only for the degradation and the destruction of Western civilization in the Middle Ages, but there's so much killing has gone on because of him. And I'm talking about the pogroms, right? The expulsions, the inquisitions, and so on. But what's interesting is, like I said, is that one of the ways that Esav, the bad part of Esav, the evil of Esav, fools everybody is because they come across as a religion. And therefore they come across as righteous, you see, and holier than thou, you see. There was this chip on their shoulder and so on, you know. So for the Pope to announce that homosexuality is permitted and not a sin, because that's what it means to go against what the Torah says, and that is the reason why the flood destroyed the planet, automatically strips away their theological position. You see, so they no longer can say that we are, you know, a religion, and therefore what we say we are holier than thou. They have just permitted that which God Himself is an abomination and subject to the death penalty, and therefore God destroyed the entire planet. Could you imagine God doing that? He doesn't do it for every sin, but that sin was worthy of destruction. The entire planet, and only Noah survived. Therefore, what the Pope just did in one fell swoop is destroy the deception of Esav. You see, because he has destroyed their theological position that they are righteous. Why is that? Because it's Esav, the evil of Esav, coming out, full blown, full exposure, as they try to destroy the good part of Esav. And that has to happen in the end, that the good part of Esav will dominate and the evil part of Esav will disappear. And we are witnessing now. Besides, he has now permitted and allowed 1 billion Catholics to engage in homosexuality, sexual perversion, right? Completely without sin. That is a destruction of the planet. It's astounding when I heard that. That's what it means.
And with the 5 minutes that we have left, Rabbi, how do the U.S. elections play in? We're seeing right now all these polls. Some are saying Biden is winning. Some are saying that Trump is winning. And then we've got all of a sudden, they call the October surprise, Hunter Biden's laptop, which possibly incriminates him and his father. They're denying it, but what do you believe is going to be happening with all of that? And one more question. Do you have any prediction who you believe is going to win the elections in the United States?
Well, we have seen a historical precedent to this. Haman, who wanted to destroy the Jewish people. Okay? What Haman did is God led him on. He deluded him. He comes to this meal, this feast with Esther and Achashverosh, and after that first feast, he comes away. He's in the heavens, and he tells his wife. He brags. You see, I'm the only guy she invited. Could you imagine who I am? That was the first feast or meal. By the second meal, he was finished. Achashverosh pronounced him, "You're dead." Why did God do that? Because this is what allows evil to destroy itself. You see, so what he does is he gives evil its due, because even evil has certain merits. So Haman had his due. Okay, now that he felt proud, that's an incredible reward. And of course, the next night he was finished. The same idea, you see, is that Democrats all of a sudden feel, well, we're going to win, the polls are for us. But of course that's nonsense. When God waits, it's incredible. We see the hand of God. It comes out literally 2 weeks before the elections. Right, and the Democrats are deluded and thinking that they will win, and all of a sudden God pulls out something. Not only is it a scandal, but look what the scandal is. You're talking about a vice president that has committed bribery. Okay, number one. Number two, he can be extorted by the nation that he's bribing, which immediately disqualifies him from being a vice president. Besides, it's a felony. And the second thing is he's actually in cahoots with communist China. Now, that's not just bribery. That is a security issue, because communist China is an enemy of America. So how in the world can he now be in the service of China? Because they're giving him millions of dollars. And let's not fool ourselves. It's not Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is a bagman for Joe Biden. So that's treason. Now, I don't know if it's technically treason, but to make a deal with an enemy of America by selling yourself and peddling your influence to them, so not only are you beholden to them, but they can extort you. That's treason. Again, I don't know if it's legally treason, but it's treasonous. So therefore, God pulled it out from nowhere. I mean, what are the odds that 2 weeks before the election, this should happen? It's God saying to the Democrats, I let you believe yourself. I deluded you into thinking that you're going to be supreme, just like Haman. But in the end, right before the end, he destroys them. You see, because the Democrats are terrible, because they are guilty of the immorality of America.
So, Rabbi,
destroyed America.
Do you have any prediction who's going to win? We're almost off the air, and I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
My prediction is that Trump will win.
And what do you base that on?
I base it on many things. One is that why would God stop Trump when his job is to assist Israel to do the tikkun? Why would he do that?
A fixing.
Why would he begin a messianic, approach only to destroy it? Because remember, Biden wins, he's the president for 8 years. Not that he will last, because he's cognitively finished. It's what do you call it? His running mate. She will become president, and she's one of the worst people to become president. She's a super liberal, will destroy America. So therefore, Trump will win because of that. Not only that, God always protects Trump. He gives him the stamina to contend against the tremendous corruption. He gives him not only that, but he protects him. So nothing really harms him, and he gives him the ability to go against all the corruption and the tremendous amount of opposition. So God protects Trump. God also protects America, because the war between Biden, if you want to look at it that way, is a civil war. It's not between Biden and Trump. It's between, will America remain America? with the good part of America, always with the chesed, the kindness that America has done, the ability to help so many people, and so on. Or will God make America into a communist, satellite?
Rabbi, in the last 10 seconds, what do you want to leave us with? What should we be doing? 10 seconds.
Anybody who does not see the hand of God in any of this, it's hard to say. Is either blind or he's dead. Is one or the other. There's so many things that you see the hand of God that is completely abnormal. How could you not see and trust in God? And all of this will be Gamzul Toivo.
I think that a lot of people's hatred blinds them.
A lot of people what?
A lot of people's hatred blinds them. Rabbi, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. God bless you. Rabbi Mendel, Kessen, TorahThinking.com. Thanks so much, Rabbi.
Okay, I hope that you enjoyed it.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
If you're hearing this message, everyone else can too. Advertise with Israel News Talk Radio and get your message out to people. We'll build a personalized package for you. Contact advertising at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Hey, this is Jake in Anchorage, Alaska, and I love listening to all the super interesting interviews and up-to-date information on what's happening in Israel.
Hello, this is Anna King, originally from London, now living in Israel. And what can I say? Israel News Talk Radio is my cup of tea.
My name is Bhaskar. I'm from India, and I love listening because you get to know the truth and wonderful voices from this lovely country.
Mom! Okay, wait a minute. Hi, this is Chava Dax, and I'm calling from the rolling hills of Ma'ale Adumim, just north of Jerusalem. I always listen to Israel News Talk Radio to get all the latest news and commentary and to keep me up to date every day.
This is Sarah Dax from Ma'ale Adumim, and I'm 12. I wish Israel News Talk Radio was boring so my mom wouldn't listen to it all the time. Mom!
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.